I want to raise just quickly a few points. First of all, the first act of the IJSN was to invade a Jewish community center which was celebrating 60 years of misery for Palestinians. And they were on the stage and they didn't know what to do with them. There were 20 of them. And they said, they're not Jewish. And then they began to sing anti-Zionist songs in Yiddish. And maybe it was in Hebrew, I don't know. And they really sat there and watched them and didn't know what to do, so they called the police. But they did it, and it hit the press. And the the Zionists in San Francisco, which is an important part of the world in some ways, understood that they could not peaceably go about their nasty business anymore, which is the first victory of the IJSN and one we are particularly proud of and will build on. The second thing that I have to say is that I was in the States in November, and there was a meeting that I addressed, and we had a sister from Ann Arbor, this was in Detroit, who spoke about the boycott of the Ann Arbor health food shop, and they had lost the vote. And she said that she was utterly astonished because all the Jewish people that she knew had come to them and said how grateful they were for this opportunity to say no to Israel. They lost the vote because one of the three people who counted the vote in private was a Zionist. And I said, well, how did you allow it? She said, we allowed it, but we won't allow it again. But the fact is that there is a great feeling against Zionism among Jewish people, which is part of the censorship of the media, at least in this country and also in the United States. There is a groundswell which we must speak to, especially those of us who are Jewish, but all of us. Okay. The third thing, this is not in order of importance or anything, but the third thing is that South Africa is not what we want. They didn't make the change in South Africa. They were prevented from making the change in South Africa. And one of the reasons they were prevented from making that change is that they were unprincipled in all kinds of ways, including not attacking Israel for defending the apartheid state. We will not have any more of that. No more scabbing. We have an international. The next thing is that Jews also have to make their case against Zionism. And the first case that I want to make is that we have a tradition of struggle. Jewish people in the concentration camps were, first of all, there not because they were Jewish, but because they were trade unionists and communists and socialists and opposing the Nazis in the street. That's why they were there. And the Zionists want to wipe that out, and we want to stress it. The second thing is that they took, my personal grudge, the second thing is that they took the Hebrew language when our language, at least in large parts of the world, was Yiddish. That's what we spoke. That was the Jewish working class language, at least among the Ashkenazis, and they wanted to wipe that tradition out. That's why they changed the native tongue. How dare they? We have to fight that. We have to point out to it. We have to say that we come from a tradition. We have always been in the forefront of the struggles for social change, and they make us sound like we have been brutes forever. Never. We fought the class struggle with Zionists and against Zion. You know, I come from a background Jewish working class ghetto. My father spat when he passed a Zionist. They were always the bosses. That's what Zionism was, a theory for those who wanted to rule the rest of us. Judaism was an occasion. It was not part of the theory.
What about the Arab Jews and the way you treated them?
Well, I leave that for you. Okay. Finally, I want to say that we have to tell people something that to me is absolutely crucial. You cannot be anti-racist unless you are anti-Zionist. You know, this playing around that people have done, where they are against the American state, but for their brothers in Haifa, we won't have it. And this anti-racism and connecting one anti-racism with the other is just barely beginning to happen. People of color connected with a small struggle. The struggle in San Francisco, Rainbow Boycott was mentioned. I've been very involved with them, trying to get a boycott of this, a boycott of Israeli goods in the biggest health food shop probably on the West Coast, maybe in the US generally, that is not a corporation. You know, the Zionists have said they were going to poison the vats of food. They absolutely, without any principle in people who say they are against the war and they are against Bush and they are against the neoconservatives, say, but on Israel they have another view. That is not on. It is not possible. If you oppose racism and war and neoliberal and neoconservative and genocide and fundamentalism in one place, it's across the board, and that's where our struggle begins. Thank you.